Hi everybody, Eric Alexander at Tecton Design here. And I need to share that I've been anxious to make this video for a very long time. I really feel like it has needed to be done. I've also been very reluctant to make this video for a very long time. So the first thing that you need to know is a little bit of context and perspective about why I'm making this video. Number one is that we only cater to audiophiles. Number two is that we're a direct to the consumer, the end user business model. So we don't have our equipment in any retail establishments or showrooms or hi-fi shops. And number three, we don't do trade shows. So how is the audiophile going to discover what our sound is, how good it is, things like that. And I will share with you that on about a weekly basis, we have people flying in, driving in, traveling in to audition what we do. And you're welcome to come here. I think of how expensive luxury speakers are today. I mean, even on the cheap side of things, $30,000 upwards to more money than houses cost. So you could probably fly in from anywhere in the United States for $600 round trip, first class, double or triple that. But that seems like a meager expense compared to the price of some of the loudspeaker models. So a couple of things that come to my mind first is that I believe I've really stayed under the radar for the most part, but again, back to a little bit of perspective and context. By the year 2000, I was just reflecting on this a few minutes ago before I hit record, but by the year 2000, most of you don't know this, but I had already been featured in every major audiophile publication and been interviewed and had my products reviewed by all of the major reviewers. The first two that come to my mind is Robert Harley and Dick Olsher. Both of those gentlemen came out, saw what we were doing, and saw my creativity and spoke about it in review. So I didn't just magically appear out of anywhere, and I was in my 20s at that time. And since then, I've done nothing but hone and refine and continue to try to perfect what we do. So I'm making this video today because I just want to share and give you some perspective about just literally, I'm no hype. I don't want to shoot over the moon, no hype, but just to give you some context and some perspective. The first one that comes to my mind is Andrew Robinson, the reviewer, Andrew Robinson. We had just created a speaker called the Pendragon, and I have to tell you, the first time I listened to that speaker, I set that very first prototype pair up, and it's never happened before, it's never happened since. But I got to tell you, I connected that pair of Pendragons up after all the product development and years of just this refinement that I'm talking about. You know, part of my backstory is, and I'll share that with you real quickly. So, lifelong musician. My parents insisted that I play a musical instrument at a very young age. I keep looking over here. My drum set's just off the camera, and so I've been a lifelong drummer. Played in bands, toured around, traveled, worked with professional musicians, which we still do today. Even in real time, we've got orders happening with music industry executives in real time. So I'd like to say that I know what real music sounds like. And by the way, I'll slip another one in here. So for many, many years, I traveled back when CES had the big audiophile show at Alexa Park, and of course Chicago and all the Los Angeles, all the major hi-fi shows. Let me tell you what my gig was, because I'm this budding speaker designer. My gig at these shows, nobody knew me, I was in my 20s, is that I spent 3 days doing nothing but going through every single room of what today are my competitors, and trying to keenly observe and listen to what was going on. and who was making the best speakers and who had the most correct speakers and things like that. I did that for many, many years. So when I arrived at the trade show, I was just gone for 3 days. And the people that I traveled with, they rarely saw me, but that was how I rolled. So fast forward to 2011, I just created the Pendragon. And I got to tell you, I sat down and I just literally hit play. Back then it was compact disc, not a lot of streaming happening back then. I hit play and I literally sat there and I just busted up laughing. I thought, you know what? This speaker is a giant killer. It still is today. Just last weekend, I'm over at my house and we DJ on the weekends. My wife and I, we love to DJ on the weekends. So we have kind of a nightclub sound, but in my living room of my house. And so we got asked to do a very big show here in another week. And so in my house, I've got a pair of Pendragons and I'm going through literally like 150 little snippets of about 150 popular dance songs that you'd hear in a nightclub. And I'm just bouncing from song to song, these snippets. And I commented to my wife, I'm like, these speakers are incredible. Even today. So just a positive note here. I mean, if you want a speaker that slays dragons, that over delivers, and for the price, $2,000 for the pair, get a pair of Pendragons. And especially if you like rock, pop, blues, jazz, all the modern music, especially electronica and dance music, things like that. My gosh, these speakers just come alive, and you will not need a subwoofer. I promise you, you can add a subwoofer, but you will not need a subwoofer with this speaker. So back to the first pair I played, and I'm chuckling. I'm like, we have bottled lightning. I remember specifically that thought. This Pendragon is bottled lightning. So Andrew Robinson reaches out and I send him a pair. And that's exactly what happened. Andrew Robinson calls me on the phone, like hours or minutes within getting these speakers. And he's like, dude, what are you doing with this speaker? It's ridiculous. Do you know that your Pendragons just dethroned my Nautilus Diamond? I mean, I'm selling my Nautilus Diamonds. They're gone. And within a couple of months, we had a full 15 stars, all 15 stars, performance, value, etc. for this amazing Pendragon that was $2,500 at the time. And as a promotion for many years now, I've sold them for $2,000 a pair. You won't find a finer speaker at $2,000. And we promptly won a Product of the Year award for that. So that kind of got the ball rolling. But let me share another few really great snippets with you. So I have a client, and I think this is the most appropriate way to give you some perspective about how good a lot of this stuff is. So I have a client in Southern California. I'll just call him Dave for today. Now, Dave and most of these other people, I'll tell you what, they'll be eager to talk to you. If you want to call me up and say, hey, you talked about this guy. Can I call him? I'll bet you dimes to dollars they're going to be eager to talk with you about what we do. So Dave and his wife have Moabs, and they have them for about 3 years. And he calls me up one day, and you know how audiophiles are. This is the classic audiophile narrative here. So he calls me up, and he's like, "Yeah, I've had these Moabs, and Eric, they sound fantastic. I really love them, but the Ulfbert sounds better, don't they?" And I said, well, yeah, I guess in a roundabout way, but it's not that big. It's just a subtle difference. And of course, there's a few $1,000s in cost between the two. He says, well, all right, I'm ordering Ulfberts. So he places the order for the Ulfberts. And so we finish the Ulfberts. I call him up to bill his credit card, and we finish the transaction. They're ready to ship. So he'd only had Moabs. He'd only heard Moabs. He says, Eric, can I share a story with you? And I said, sure. He says, well, I got looking at the Ulfberts and saw that they were really big, and my wife and I start talking, and we're like, exploring big speakers, like as in, did we regret our purchase? And Eric speakers are 10 cents on the dollar compared to these luxury speakers. So what's going on here? So for them, and now, not only is Dave an audiophile, but he's a clinical psychologist. So there you go. Psychologist, highly educated audiophile. How am I going to deceive somebody like that? It's impossible. I can't trick somebody into discerning good sound. Not at that level. So he says, well, we thought, just in the sake of making sure we're not making a bad choice, we get in the car, we go down, and we're at the Focal dealer, and we auditioned the Grand Utopias. And I said, so how much were they today? And he says, well, they were $270,000 a pair. So keep in mind that he'd just ordered an $8,000 pair from me, but he had a $4,500 pair in his house that he's had for the last 3 years. Now, keep in mind that look at the background that I just explained and the patented technology that we have. So this is all patented. This is the Moab. This is what he has in his house. It's all patented. We won 3 Product of the Year awards for this. Look, audiophile reviewers, professional reviewers, they know what they're hearing. They've got good discernment. There was nothing dubious involved. They heard the Moabs. They gave us 3 Product of the Year awards because this speaker, frankly, sounds incredible. It sounds incredible. And honestly, I don't know where you're going to go to get a $5,100 pair of speakers. That's the price today, thanks to inflation and our modern economy. $5,100 for the pair. Honestly, I don't know where you're going to go to get a speaker that sounds that good. It doesn't exist on planet Earth, and it's intellectual property, and it's patented. So back to the Focal and the Grand Utopia demo at the LA dealer in Los Angeles. And now I'm going to give you a little more context. So when I started out prototyping, product development, really trying to perfect the loudspeaker in the early 90s, I always felt like it was a privilege to get on the phone and talk to Kimon Bellis. Kimon is the guy behind the Focal driver, behind the Focal name. Okay. And I thought the guy walked on water, and anytime I could pick his brain and get some advice from him, and I felt like he was making the best drivers on earth at the time. So drivers, i.e. would be woofers, tweeters, mid-range. I'd run the parameters, I'd run the simulations, I'd do this stuff, I'd measure the tweeters, and I'm like, man, this guy's making the best stuff on earth. And so that's how good, this is why I'm painting the picture and telling the story. I was sad when JM Labs comes on the scene and shuts down all the OEM in the late 90s. You could no longer get Focal drivers to build the type of stuff that we build today. The OEM part of it was just done, and they locked the door. So Dave and his wife goes in, they get the demo, and they come back out, they sit in their car, and this is exactly what the man shared with me. He says, Eric, we sat in our car, and we looked at each other completely dumbfounded, like, what did we just experience? His wife at some point, I'll never forget this, his wife at some point goes, is Eric some kind of wizard? Well, no, I'm not a wizard. I'm a keen observer. I am an inventor and a designer, and I've been doing this for 35 years. And I will say that I've been doing this for 30 years professionally. It's all I do. Like I'm a giant dope at about everything else on the earth, but I like to say that I do know loudspeakers. So is Eric some kind of wizard, or what did we just experience? And then he so calmly and so focused told me, Eric, I would not trade my Moabs for that pair of Grand Utopias under any circumstances, because your mid-range sounded better. Now, I know he's telling the truth, because when I went to Rocky Mountain Audio Fest in 2019 and we were there with Moabs, and I know exactly what that Moab sounds like, and I can go in my room that we shared with Parasound and I can listen to those for 5 hours. Down across the way was a pair of Focal Grand Utopias, and I walked up and I thought, I'm hearing them. I'm like, well, they sound fantastic, but they don't sound as good as a pair of Moabs. So that's an interesting conundrum. The emperor has no clothes. There you go. The emperor has no clothes. Since that time, we talked a few weeks later, and this same client and his wife went down to the Magico dealer in Los Angeles. And he calls me up, and guess what? They had the exact same experience. Better mid-range. Now, why am I focusing on the mid-range? Because mid-range is the most critical element of what's going on in a loudspeaker. Peter McGrath, David Wilson's right-hand guy, walked up to the Parasound, Richard Schramm, and said, quote, "At least he got the mid-range right." Now he's listening to a little monitor, and of course he's going to be super critical, because think of how big the Chronosonic XVS and things like that are today. All right. So we have this little speaker that's this, and we got the mid-range right. And that same day, I have people bouncing the word to us that we're producing perfect mid-range. I truly believe we're making perfect mid-range, and that's what I'm going to stick to. We're making perfect mid-range. Next thing I'll share with you is Jay's Audio Lab. So Jay takes it completely unsolicited. I had no idea this was happening. Jay, one of my clients, feed him a pair of Ulfberts, and he's got Ulfberts, and he does a video. I mean, you can pull this video up. He does a video where he compares, in a bit of a shootout, the Ulfberts, again, at the time, $8,000 pair of speakers, to $95,000 Wilson, they're Alex or something comparable to that size. So $80,000, $90,000 pair of speakers. And guess what? I mean, it's kind of ludicrous that the narrative that unfolds with Jay is that the speaker's actually going toe to toe with this very expensive luxury speaker. And Jay was just, I appreciate what he said, because he's like, if you are interested in this Focal such and such, in this Magico such and such, in this Sonus Faber such and such, all luxury speakers that are costing double, 3 times more money than my Ulfbert, then you need to hear this speaker. And he's right. You need to hear this speaker. Get on a plane, come out here, get a demo. Find somebody in your area, go and listen to the speaker. And the other thing that's kind of sad is that he commented at one point that the Ulfbert didn't quite have the bass prowess that the Wilson did, and I wish that Jay would have called me. And by the way, we made an evolutionary change in the Ulfbert immediately with that. I'm like, we will have none of that, because he kind of commented that the Alex had a little better bass performance than the Ulfbert. But what you need to know is that the Ulfbert's in a large cabinet, and I did what's called an extended shelf tuning. So I tried to get a little more of the very, very deep, almost infrasonic bass, and sacrifice a little bit of the primary bass region. So long story short, we cut 3 inches off the port, we retuned the speaker, and voila, we have a speaker today, the Ulfbert, that I got to tell you, it's voiced like the Chronosonic, the Wilson Chronosonic that sells for $360,000. It's voiced like that. I mean, I've compared frequency response. I've looked at John Atkinson's measurements in Stereophile. We have a speaker that's voiced like that, and it is more linear. End of discussion. We have a flatter frequency response and a similar voicing, so you don't need to spend $360,000. You only need to spend $10,000. So spend $10,000 and get a gold Rolex Daytona or a used Ferrari. You're going to be happier. All right. So speaking of the Rolex, Michael Wright. So 2 funny stories about the double impact here. So Michael Wright, he's a reviewer in Chicago, and he's got Wilson Watt puppies. Okay, so at the cheap side of things, $35,000. Realistically, $45,000 to $50,000 speaker. Okay, so he gets the double impacts, and he writes a review, and he calls me on the phone, and we talked at length many times. He's like, Eric, I don't know how you do it. You've got this $3,000 speaker, and I got to tell you that it's as good as the Wilson Watt puppy. And in the end of his review, he said, buy the double impacts in a Rolex, you'll be happier. Well, here's some more evidence about just how good this double impact speaker is. About that same time, and after he had written that review, I get a phone call, cold call, from a guy up in Alberta, Canada. And he's pissed. Eric, what's this nonsense that I hear that this double impact sounds better than the Wilson Audio Sasha? I just bought Sasha's. I've only had them a short period of time, and I'm buying your double impacts on a dare. You can expect them to come back. That's the guy's words. Okay, so he buys them. We send them up to Canada, and to the man's credit, about 3 or 4 weeks go by. It was an extended period, and I get another cold call, and it's this gentleman, and his demeanor was completely different. He was so calm and humble, and he said, "Eric, dude, I don't know how you're doing it. I don't know what's going on here." He says, "I just want to quantify what I'm discerning and hearing over here on my end." And he loved the double impacts. And he says, "Here's what I'm hearing. I like your speaker for every type of music, the double impact, for every type of music, excluding classical and bluegrass." And I'm wearing a Bluetooth headset, and I hold my hands up, and I'm like, well, you know what? I can live with that. And I've thought about that experience for many years now. And I could certainly revoice the speaker and change things up, and I bet you we could get him to like that double impact for bluegrass and classical just as much as our competitor. The other one I'd love to share with you, and I've mentioned this in a past video, was one day I'm just working and I get this cold call, and it's Albert von Schweikert prior to his death. And it was the same phone call, just cold, cool, calm, collected. "Eric, I like what you're doing with these tweeters." He got it. He looked at the patent. He understood it. He grasped it. And so here's a guy that's designing the world's best speakers, some of the world's best speakers, and a physicist that's been compared to Einstein, and more importantly, a guitar player. So you're not going to get any baloney past a guy like this. He's calling me on the phone to say congratulations. And oh, by the way, I've got a loudspeaker museum. Could you send us a pair for the loudspeaker museum? And that was the level that he had felt that we had gotten to. Share another one with you, coming to my mind. So we sent out a pair of double impacts to the guy. He didn't say a word. He just ordered them, sends them out. And a few weeks later, I get this phone call. And this one was humbling for me. I get this phone call, and he's like, "Eric, I've got my double impacts. I've got them all set up. And I have to share something with you." He says, "I've owned Klipschorns for decades. I did not think that anyone could ever top this speaker. There's no way that anyone's going to top Paul Klipsch's crown jewel Klipschorns. Not going to happen." And he said, "Well, I have to commend you. You did it. Your double impacts sound better than my Klipschorns." And I got to tell you, I mean, that was like, I had a sense of sadness in my heart. No joke. Like, I just thought, oh my gosh, this guy is just pouring his heart out, and he's being honest, and he's being sincere. And I was actually sad. I mean, I sold Klipsch speakers, and I have nothing but the highest regard for these companies that I'm talking about, the Klipsch, the Magicos, the YGs. I'm not a vicious competitor, so to speak. I love what I do. There's many, many, many more stories and emails that are exactly like the message that I've just conveyed to you. But I tell you this, you step up, you buy an Encore, you buy a Moab, you buy a double impact, and I'll touch on one more new speaker here, and you're going to be pleasantly rewarded. I will tell you, you're going to be pleasantly rewarded. And I don't know where you're going to go to get this kind of sound for the money that we sell it. Obviously, it's not exciting. Okay, so I'm an audio designer. I'm not an industrial designer, and we could bring industrial designers on and make this stuff look like luxury model, visual pieces of art, but that's just frankly not our business model. Look, JBL and Klipsch were making probably the best speakers in the 1970s, and they're highly regarded and highly collectible vintage speakers today, and they were not luxury pieces. Look at what JBL was doing with a walnut veneer and some blue front panel, and those are prized jewels in the vintage market over in Japan today. About this same color, by the way. I like that color. So one last thing here we'll touch on. This is a speaker that we have a pretty passionate owner by the name of Brian McNamara. Brian McNamara is up in Michigan, and he's a member of the Audiophile Club there. And so for like a year, he's every now and then we chat on the phone. He's like, Eric, I've had all the members over here. These guys have really expensive speakers. And the only difference between what Brian got and what we have here is that I set him up with double tweeters so that he could switch between an AMT tweeter and a beryllium tweeter. But other than that, it's basically the same speaker. And so he's like, Eric, these audiophiles are over here. We've had a club meeting at my house, and they're drooling and slobbering, and they cannot believe how good this speaker sounds, especially in the realm of the spatial nature and the imaging. You have got to make this speaker. So after a year and hearing this narrative a few times over, we've replicated Brian McNamara's speaker. We call it the Aria. And I got to tell you, so of course, some of these are bigger and you get a more exciting power response. And this is where, if you call me, we can really narrow down to the speaker that you're going to want to get. So what we do with Brian's is, Brian's version here is amazing spatial image and depth, and the imaging is just to die for. And it's because of the slightly slender panel that the way that we're propagating the front wave off of that, it's to your advantage. So there's a new model, something that's very audiophile appropriate, ridiculously affordable, and I'll use Brian's words here. Crazy imaging, like ridiculous, trying to wrap your brain around how good this thing images. Well, that's what it does. You can see we're using the same patented technology. Freaky image that's another one that comes to my mind, that he's described this thing as freaky image. Well, yeah, it's freaky image in a good way, and we'd love to get a few more of these out. So there you go. Again, many, many, many stories like that, many, many emails like that, hundreds. I'm not joking. There's hundreds of stories that are very much like that. And I'll stop on one other one. So we just delivered a pair of our 15-inch Ulfberts to a guy by the name of Craig down in Phoenix. I'll turn you loose to him because he's a big do-it-yourselfer. He's got a very expensive pass system. I mean, like we're talking the luxury cost of a hi-fi system. And so the same thing again. So Craig has a PhD, so he's highly educated. He's been playing. I asked him yesterday, Craig, how long have you been at the piano? He says, I was playing at age 11 publicly. So he's a professional piano player, PhD, hardcore audiophile, even to the point of the there's I don't know how to categorize these audiophiles. You'll know what I'm talking about. They're the guys that are into the tweaking, and I call them bat hearing and spider senses. Okay, so Craig's a bat hearing and spider senses kind of guy. So not only is he interested in how good the bass sounds and how well it images and everything else, he's into the subtle nuances, the micro details of all of this stuff. He flat out told me, best speaker I've ever heard. Best speaker I've ever heard. So there you go. 15-inch Ulfbert, a guy that's qualified to give his opinion, best speaker he's ever heard, period, end of discussion. Loves them. They're super linear. Again, back to these luxury speakers. We're making, and we're doing some really fantastic things here. So I've gone on long enough. I'm guessing a lot of the people haven't made it to the end because it's a big, long ramble. But there you go. A little bit of perspective, some context. and call me. Come on out, make an appointment. Come on out and listen to what we do. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, pleasantly rewarded. I got to add one more. So we had a guy that was traveling up from Central America, driving. I wouldn't have the courage to do that, but he came all the way up from South America, Central America, lives in Vancouver, and one of his destination bullet points was Tecton Design, Orem, Utah, hardcore audiophile. I'm not going to trick you guys. I'm not going to deceive anybody here. So he gets here and he comes here to listen to this speaker right here, the Encore. So we had him set up and ready for him to arrive, and he comes in and he gets the demo. But I'll never forget, he knew he was going to hear something good. But I'll never forget, because we're having our goodbyes. You know, he'd been here for an hour and a half. We're having our goodbyes and he's heading out the door. He turns around and he says, "They sound better than I expected that they would." So he knew they were going to sound good, but like, no, not only did they sound good, but they sounded better than he imagined that they could possibly sound. So there you go. That's what we do. Appreciate the watch, and hopefully you can give us a like, and have a fantastic day.